We continue reviewing simulation exam, number 1, chapter 4, and this chapter is worth 7 points on the estate exam, so it's a very important chapter. Question 70. Which of the following documents is not only recommended, but also requires a mandatory signature? This is one you have to memorize. The correct answer is A. Consent to transition to a transaction broker. Question 71. A licensee who represents both parties in the same residential transaction with full representation is acting as. So a licensee that represents both sides in the same residential transaction, offering full representation, is a violation of the law. And we call that a dual agent. Next question, 72. It may be considered fraudulent for a broker or sales associate to attempt to sell a property knowing that, here's the trick, whenever you see the word fraudulent connected with sales, the answer will always point to lottery or raffle schemes. That's what you need to look for. So the answer here is C, selling through a lottery promotion. Question 73. A broker gets a client who wants to sell their property for $750,000. The broker lists the property and a few days later sends his wife, who uses her maiden name, to submit an offer for $740,000. The client accepts the offer and the sale closes. The broker never informed the client that he was part of that corporation. Which statement is correct in this situation? And here's the problem. He failed to disclose. What's the correct statement in this situation? The broker acted improperly by hiding his role as a buyer. If I hold a listing, I cannot secretly buy my own listing. Why? Because I'd see all the offers that come in and then use that inside information to slip in my own offer. That's a serious violation. Question 74. Which of the following duties or obligations does not correspond to a transaction broker? Here's what you must memorize. Transaction brokers do not owe obedience, loyalty, or full disclosure. Those three, along with full confidentiality, are exclusive duties of single agents. So in this case, the correct answer is obedience. And let me give you a tip. This single concept can actually generate 4 different exam questions. They may ask the exact same question, but instead of obedience, they put loyalty or full disclosure or confidentiality. Each time, the right answer is the same. Those belong only to single agents. That's why it's so important to have these duties memorized. Question 75. What would be the best definition of a principal in relation to a broker? The correct answer is C, someone who hires the services of a broker. Not necessarily the buyer or the seller specifically, but the person who contracts the broker's services. Question 76. Let's look at a scenario. The sales associate Martine listed a house for $450,000 in the MLS multiple listing service. Martine received a call from a sales associate of a competing office presenting a verbal offer of $440,000 for the mentioned property. Martine never presented this offer to the homeowner. Days later, the office that presented the verbal offer filed a complaint against Martine for not having presented the verbal offer to the client. According to the facts mentioned, which of the following statements would be correct? The correct answer here is B. Martin was required to present the verbal offer to his client. Why? Because under Chapter 4, one of the transaction broker's duties is to present all offers and counteroffers promptly. And when the law says all offers, it includes verbal offers. It doesn't say all written offers. It just says all offers. That means everything, and it must be presented as soon as possible, unless the seller has given you written instructions saying otherwise. And notice the key detail here. If the seller had only said verbally, "Don't bring me verbal offers," that's not enough. It has to be in writing. Even a quick email, text, or message counts as written communication. But if it's not in writing, you still must present every single offer, including verbal ones. Question 77. A licensee receives a first offer on a property he is selling, but before presenting it to the owner, he receives another offer for a higher amount. What would be the correct action of the licensee? The answer is C. Present both offers simultaneously. And here's why. Don't assume that the highest offer is automatically the best one, not necessarily. Imagine the higher offer is heavily financed, asks for closing cost contributions, and the buyer only has a 600 credit score. On the other hand, the lower offer is all cash. Which one is better? You don't know until the seller evaluates all the conditions. That's why the rule is simple. Present all offers at the same time. Question 78. A licensee learns by reading the title condition report prepared by an attorney that the title of the property his client is trying to sell has issues that prevent it from being negotiated. What should the licensee do? So the rule here is that whenever you discover something negative about a property, whether it's a lien, a title issue, or any other defect, your duty is to disclose it to the owner immediately. Not later, not if they ask, but as soon as possible. That's the key phrase, as soon as possible. Question 79. An owner designates a licensee as an exclusive agent. The week the seller was traveling, the licensee found a buyer and signed the purchase offer without previously notifying the owner. In view of this, it can be said that, now, does being a single agent give you the authority to accept or sign contracts on behalf of your client? Absolutely not. So the correct answer is B. The licensee cannot force the owner to accept the offer, because unless the licensee has been formally granted a power of attorney, he has no authority to sign on the client's behalf. And let me give you a practical piece of advice. Even if you're offered a power of attorney, it's not recommended that you, as the listing agent, also act as the person signing contracts. That creates a conflict of interest. You might be tempted to accept any offer just to close quickly and earn your commission. It's always safer for the seller to name someone else as their legal representative, not the listing agent.